Welcome to the Care for Pastors podcast. I'm your host, Robby Bolden, and we're so glad you're joining us today. We're in the middle of our series called Healthy Habits of Pastors, where we're looking at the rhythms that strengthen the soul and sustain us for the long journey of ministry. Today's conversation is about one of the most overlooked yet vital practices for pastors, the Sabbath. While most of us are familiar with the word, far fewer of us are actually practicing it in a meaningful way. And yet God himself modeled Sabbath, and Jesus regularly stepped aside and rested, reflected, and connected with his Father. To help us unpack what this looks like in real life, I'm joined today by Pastor Jason Borton of the Harvest Time Bible Church. Jason shares his personal journey of burnout, how God used care for pastors in a pivotal season of his life, and how rediscovering the practice of Sabbath has reshaped his soul, his ministry, and his family. Whether you're struggling to slow down or you're longing for a healthier rhythm of life and ministry, this conversation will encourage and challenge you to embrace the gift of Sabbath. So now join me as we talk with Jason. Welcome to the Care for Pastors podcast. I'm Robby Bolden, the host of the Care for Pastors podcast, and I'm here today with Jason Borton. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Real honor and
Good.
Yeah, humbled to do it.
Good. So, Jason, you're the pastor of Harvest Time Bible Church, and so we're glad that we get to talk to you today about the subject of Sabbath. And so that's a word everybody knows, but not a lot of people practice, right?
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So he's going to be able to talk to us today about this important habit that a lot of pastors really, a lot don't practice it. So one of the reasons we're talking about Sabbath today is because the majority of the pastors who come to Care for Pastors do not practice it. And so that's the reason why we're highlighting this subject today. But before we get there, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, sure. My wife and I have been married 31 years. And we met at Cedarville University in Ohio back in the early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, so, the late 1900s, I love to say from the pulpit. But anyway, we met and dated for 3 years and then got married in college between our junior and senior year. Daisha. So, yeah, it's so wild because I never heard the name before until I met her, and and now in our little small town here, there are 4 Daishas that live in this small town. So
now you're in
so
with them.
Yeah, right. But we've been married 31 years. We have 5 kids, all adults, and we have 2 that are engaged to be married, and 1 that's going to be getting married this coming summer. And our youngest is a sophomore in college. So, it's been a blast. Been fun. We love having the family, and it's good stuff.
So, how long have you been at Harvest Time?
It'll be 30 years in January.
Wow,
so I graduated from Cedarville in December of '95 and started at the church January of '96.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
And you're the second pastor of this church, right?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah. Our founding pastor started the church in '81, and then he retired in '15, and then I had been the youth pastor from when I started in '96. Well, youth pastor / assistant pastor from all the way from the beginning. So I was not only doing youth ministry, but lots of other things on top of that. But and then I moved into the senior role, lead role, in 2016, January of 2016. So
now, Jason, there's a story behind the meaning of Sabbath for you. Can you share with us a little bit about how Sabbath became important to you and what prompted you to take it seriously?
Yeah, for real. It's like you said, even in the opening, that many of the guys that come to Care for Pastors aren't aren't practicing it, and definitely was true of me. I was not. That was not something that was even necessarily on the radar. I mean, sure, I taught about it, I read about it, all those kinds of things, but never really made it a actual practice of my life. And so in 2022, I was going through some just really, really difficult time, just coming out of the COVID whole thing, and that played into it. There were things that were happening within the church. There was just leadership transition. I mean, all kinds of stuff that was going on that was just piling up. And I was at a point of breaking, burning out, just not doing well, ready to quit,
Right.
ready to give it up, walk away. And so I ended up trying to get help from local places in our area, and every single one of them that I reached out to never heard anything back from. And so I went, my wife came in and we had a discussion about it, and she's like, "You need to get help." And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I Google searched help for pastors, and the very first thing that popped up was Care for Pastors website. And so I clicked on it, thought, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing that I did before, and went to their contact thing, filled in the information, yada yada. I ended up getting a phone call within 30 minutes.
Wow, good.
And it was awesome. And I can't remember who I talked to originally, but I ended up talking with Ron, and he ended up just, it was like I was talking to somebody who already knew everything that was going on in my life. It was crazy. But I would come to understand later it was because of how many pastors he had worked with up to that point. And he was asking me questions. Well, the very first question he asked me was, "How's your soul?" And honestly, I didn't know how to answer that question. I mean, like I told him.
You're not the only one.
Right? Like I told him,
Yeah.
and I've asked it so many times since, and people say the same thing to me. They're like, "Whoa, that's the first time I've ever been asked that question. My entire life, never been asked that question before." And, of course I got going through my head, it is well with my soul. But I knew it wasn't. It was not well. And so that began a journey of coming to understand what was going on in my life, what I needed. And I ended up in October, I think it was end of October, early November, we went down to Florida for Care for Pastors and spent time down there, concentrated time, Daisha and I both, with Ron. And it was life-changing. It was ministry-changing. It was soul-changing. It was just, it was exactly what I needed and exactly when I needed it. And God's timing was perfect in it. And out of that came the necessity to practice Sabbath, and really a 3-year journey for me so far that is still continuing on. I've not arrived. Like Paul, I have not been perfected. I'm still pressing on toward the goal. It's something that I realize that this is going to be a lifelong pursuit. It has to be a lifelong pursuit.
So, Jason, you talked about COVID and that whole area. We've dealt with a lot of pastors who really struggle with burnout and fatigue during that whole season. What was what was life like before you started really concentrating on a Sabbath, and how was and what was your schedule like?
Yeah, right. So it's funny. One of my close friends is he's the superintendent of schools here, and we used to talk about how there would be ebbs and flows in the course of ministry as far as busy times and not so busy times and whatever. And he and I both talk about there's no such thing as that anymore. It's busy and crazy busy. And it literally is. I mean, it's just it's either busy, or it's just completely nutso crazy that you feel like you're drowning, and there is no downtime anymore. I mean, you have to step out of the stream in order to get any rest. If you don't,
Right.
you just get caught up in it, and you're just taken downstream quickly. And so, I mean, I think even going into, whether it was into COVID or even before that, I mean, it was, constant busyness. Whether that was with church or whatever it was. And at that time, my kids were, almost all of them were teenagers, and still at home. And so there's, family life, and there's my relationship with my wife, and there's ministry, and there's relationship with my staff, and there's relationship with the church people, and there's just all the things that go with all of that. And then on top of that, there were choices that very, very close individuals of mine were making that were sin issues that it was just, and then compound that with everything that went on with COVID, and especially here in Illinois, it was insane the changes that would happen. Like, it just felt like every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I know my friend and I, we talked about change or decision fatigue. Both of us and it wasn't just us. I mean, everybody was feeling that.
Yes.
Leaders that I was talking to, whether they were, within the business district, or whether they were education, or whether they were in the church world or whatever, it just, everybody was feeling this crazy fatigue and burnout from all of these decisions that had to be made. And then you couldn't please anybody. Like, if you made a decision one way, people were all on you about it, from one side or another. It didn't matter. Whatever decision we made, it was never a good decision, and that was really tough. It was just extremely difficult, and then you add on just things that were going on that it led to a point where I was just done. I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm not making any difference. This is, and really what it ended up being was my mind was just flooded with lies that Satan was just feeding my mind. And I cannot tell you, I woke up literally every single morning for a year at least with just failure, like, and people's names going through my head, my kids' names going through my head, my wife, people in our community, people in our church, just name after, and then it was just immediately followed by fail, and it was like it was overwhelming, and Satan just man, he was having a field day in my mind, in my soul, really.
So as you processed all that, obviously it doesn't sound like you took any time to rest or recoup. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, I had a day off. That was supposed to be my day off, but the phone kept ringing, emails kept coming through, texts coming through, instant messages, whatever. And so yeah, it was a day off, but it wasn't like there was. I mean, it was
restful.
Just not. No, it wasn't restful at all. It wasn't restful. It wasn't. It was just continued work, except from home, and sometimes not even that. Sometimes it'd be getting called up to wherever and doing whatever was needed at the time. So
right.
Yeah.
So Jason, your story isn't unique. I mean, it's unique to you, your
Sure.
experience, right? But
Yeah.
A lot of pastors, though, they have a day off, but they're never off, right?
Right.
And so, why do you think pastors think they can get away with not taking time to Sabbath, to rest, and to continue to process everything that's going on in their life in church and ministry?
I mean, I think one of the reasons is because hey, we're doing ministry. This is good. Like, this is supposed to be, things that we're doing are good. Being there for people, loving on people, caring for people. Again, all those things are good, and they are right in their time. But I think sometimes we just think that we can just, we just can do, and that's what we need to focus on, because so much of even the way I grew up, and even what I was taught as a young child in church was, your spirituality is based on, or your faith is based on, or the degree of that faith, or how people look at you is based on how much you do. And so,
right.
And I remember, Ron talking about, hey, we're not human doings, we're human beings, and how much who I be is so much more important than what I do. And that was just not a concept that I was even thinking about. I was just thinking about, I just got to do this. I got to do this, that, and it was just all about the doing, all about expending energy and giving away your life. Because and again, that's what I had. I think I don't think originally that's what I wanted to go into ministry. I knew God was calling me into ministry, but as time went on, ministry just became about this checklist of things to do,
Right.
and not about. It's almost like I was falling into the religious trap of just I got to do X, Y, Z in order to keep up, and not thinking about this whole thing is not just about religious activity. It's about a relationship, and
right.
I'd forgotten that, or let that go, or
sure you did.
Number of different things,
and taking a day off prevented you from doing, and
absolutely.
And if you're supposed to be doing all the time to please people, to encourage people, man, where do you stop?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because again, it's all those things are good. But I think what I ended up realizing was that they're all good. But this good is keeping me from what is best. And what's best is a relationship with the Lord. And, I remember even Ron talking about, like, hey, if you don't care for your own soul, who else is going to do that?
Right.
Who else is going to care for your soul? And how are you going to continue to care for other people's soul if you're not caring for your own? And so, that was huge. I mean, that was, and I knew that's what I was called to, was relationship with the Lord that, yes, is expressed through ministry with other people. But first and foremost, I was called to love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love others as I love myself. So, in a way, I wasn't even caring for myself, so how was I even loving other people really effectively?
Right.
Especially if I'm neglecting my relationship with the Lord. So, I think that's where that all sort of came to a head with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it easier to do than to be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really is. I mean, it is and it is and it isn't. I mean, it is in the sense of it's easy to get sucked into that whirling vortex of doing stuff, and just I'm just going through the motions. I'm just doing this over and over and over again, and it's super easy to get sucked into that, and it's really easy to Satan is really, really good at distracting us from what's really best, and sometimes he'll even use some of the good things that we can do. It's funny. I mean, I have in my mind this one pastor I remember saying over and over again. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And yet I'm trying to do everything for everybody.
Yeah.
and that's just doesn't.
It's not possible.
No, I mean, maybe it works for a while, but at some point it catches up.
So Jason, how about we define a Sabbath? What is a Sabbath?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the Old Testament teaches on Sabbath, and even the New Testament too. I think what's interesting is I was diving into the word and what it means. Simply for me, as I came to it, it means to stop. It just means to stop. And and what's interesting is I didn't think about this except for the last probably 2 years. But my dad. So I grew up on a dairy farm, and we could not go a day without milking the cows. That had to be done, right? There was no getting around that. But my dad, I remember on a Sunday, we never hit the fields, like never. He was like, we are going to church. We are going to worship the Lord. This is the Lord's day. We're going to go. We're going to do what we got to do. We got to milk the cows. That has to be done. But we're not doing any more work. And I don't know if I ever even asked him about that. My dad has passed away since, and I don't think, but now I really believe that that's what he was practicing Sabbath as a farmer, and he got it. I mean, and my dad was his relationship with the Lord was so it was alive, it was active, and he could love other people out of the overflow of that relationship, and he could do it well, and he was a farmer. And so it wasn't like he didn't work. I mean, he worked like crazy. But he taught me from a young age that, and I never connected the dots until in the last 3 years, of just how important that is to our lives as individuals. And so for me, it's stopping, but it's not just stopping to do nothing. It could be stopping to do nothing, but it's not just necessarily resting in the sense of taking a nap, though it could be taking a nap. But right. For me, it's stopping and recognizing the goodness of God in the land of the living. It's stopping and recognizing all that God has done and remembering what he has done, because I think that's what, why God instituted it with his people, was that they would remember all the good things that he had done, all of the good things that he was doing in their lives. And it's really interesting, when they didn't practice Sabbath, things did not go well for them as a nation or as people. And when those kings that would forget and they would stop focusing on the goodness of God, they would start focusing on everything else. And it just never worked out well for them. But those kings that came back and reinstituted Sabbath, then things started to really take off again for the people of God. And I think it's the same thing for us. So for me, it's about stopping, remembering what God has done, enjoying what God has done, and then just letting the time be about enjoying the goodness of God, enjoying God's creation, enjoying what God has given us, but it is stopping from work. For me, it's stopping from work.
Yeah. Why do you think that's so important to practice the Sabbath and just kind of remember all those things you just talked about? Why is that a big deal?
I mean, man, there's a lot of reasons. Number one is because I think as human beings, we easily forget the goodness of God. We easily forget all the good things that God has done. We easily forget the blessings that God pours out into our lives. And when we do that, we stop looking to God to give us the strength to do what he calls us to do. I mean, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And I think what ends up happening is I think we get to a place that I can do all things through me or through whatever that gives me strength. And it's no. We need to remember it's through Christ that gives us strength. It's even John 15, apart from the vine, you can do nothing. But if you're connected to him, you're going to bear much fruit. So, okay, what fruit has he helped me to bear in my life? And so I think it hinges. It's a hinging point for all of ministry, that we stop and we remember what God has done for us and that we enjoy that. And not only that, but it's patterned after even God Sabbathed. He rested. Yep. And he didn't have to. He didn't have to. But it's not like God rested because he had to. It's not because God didn't rest because he needed a nap, because he was tired. He rested because he in that resting looked back and went, "This is good. What I've done, this is great. This is awesome." And so I think, to me, it's one of those things where it's patterning my life after God's. And then if I look at how God in the flesh, Jesus, practiced Sabbath, I mean, one of my favorite verses is in Luke, and it talks about the fact that Jesus often went off to lonely places and prayed. And that's Sabbathing. I mean, that is stopping what he was doing. That's stopping ministry. Sometimes right in the middle of it, he would stop and like go off to pray and spend time with the Father. And I think it's just, it really is, it's so vital. One thing that I think that I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about Sabbath, and they were talking about rest, and they were talking about creation in Genesis 1, and how, like, when it talks about the days, that the rhythm of the day, it says, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. And it kept repeating that. There's evening and there's morning. There's evening. And it's like, wait, what? Shouldn't it be morning and then evening? And it's like this individual is pointing out that all the way from the beginning, all the way from the start of creation, God had a different rhythm for life and for what was going on. Evening and then morning. So there was actually, he started with rest, and then out of that rest worked. And I'm like, wow, that just blew. I mean, I remember that blowing my mind, thinking, holy cow. And then on the seventh day, he rested, like took the entire day and rested. So he was talking about how, like with Sabbath, the necessity for rhythm in that is so huge, and why even them, the call to rest weekly. But I love even what I see in Jesus is not just a rhythm of weekly, but daily. Jesus rested, Jesus Sabbath, seasonally Jesus Sabbath. There's just an amazing rhythm that Jesus even practiced in his life in the short time that he was here. And that to me is also what's crazy, right? He only had 3.5 years of ministry, and yet Sabbath rest for him was huge.
Yes,
was it just a
right
common practice for him?
Yeah. So that brings me to a question. What does it say about us when we don't practice Sabbath and God did, and Jesus did?
I mean, without actually saying that we're arrogant or that we're being, that we're thinking that somehow we can do this better than God. I don't know that. I don't know that that's what I was thinking, or that I would say that's what I was articulating. But in essence, that's really what I was telling God was, hey, I don't need you. I can do this on my own. I've got this. You've pointed me in the right direction. I'm the arrow in your quiver. You've shot me in the right direction. I'm good to go. And man, that's so far from the truth. Like it to think that I can, because of this ability or this whatever, or this calling, that somehow I can do that apart from him. I mean, the Bible is so clear. Jesus over and over, Paul over and over, apart from him, we can do nothing. There's just nothing of eternal value that we can do. But again, there is obviously the other flip side of that is I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So, I love Paul where he talks about, for to me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And that was just the heartbeat of his life. And not just him, but so many others that have obviously made a massive difference in other people's lives and for the kingdom. They practiced rest, they practiced Sabbath, they practiced the presence of God, spending it with God.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In your maybe in your background, what were some of the dangers or the pitfalls that you fell into by not practicing Sabbath?
yeah. For sure, opening myself up to the enemy getting a foothold in my mind and in my thinking, and for sure, just tired, worn out. I think too, like part of like you start to look at people almost as the enemy. Like I can't believe this. I can't believe this guy is calling me again at whatever time of day. Doesn't this person understand that there's all these other people that go to our church? I mean, like just very critical, cynical of people. Just very. I don't know, like they're the enemy somehow. And then that would translate not only into, okay, these people are calling me to do this. So then what I'm not only doing is I'm not only sacrificing my own health on the altar of ministry, but I'm also sacrificing my kids and my wife on that ministry on that altar. And I mean, that was something that I had to come to grips with my own kids. I sat them down, all as teenagers, and just had to open up and honestly apologize to them. And because I knew that there was so many times that I put the church family ahead of my own family, and my number one role as dad and husband and lover of God, and that I laid aside to do good things, and so yeah, it leads to opening it up myself to Satan's attacks. It led to sacrificing things that should have never been sacrificed, for again, it's like, man, if you can't love your family well, how are you going to love the church well? But that was far from my thinking. It was just, I got to do this. Sorry, kids. Can't do this tonight because I got to go to the hospital. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I need to answer this call, whatever.
Yeah. How did they respond to your apology?
Really well. I think really, really well. It went way better than I thought it was going to. 3 of my kids, my younger ones, because I think I began to realize maybe halfway into ministry that I was doing it. My 2 older ones definitely were like, "Yeah, Dad, I can see you," and they're both in their 20s, so they were like, "Yeah, I can see where," but they were also very, very gracious. I mean, in the sense that, "Dad, we know that you love us. We know that you care about us. We know that but yeah, I wish we could have X. I wish we could have Y." And I can't change anything about that. But I definitely can make a change about where we're heading and have.
Yes.
And and that's
good.
huge.
Yeah,
So I praise God for that.
That's awesome. So the reason I asked that question is because I'm a big proponent of pastors acknowledging their shortcomings with their family and seeking forgiveness, because
Absolutely.
our kids do not expect us to be perfect. They know that. They live with us, right?
Absolutely.
But it's prideful when we fail to recognize our sin. And we're teaching them a bad habit of not repenting either, right?
Yeah. Right. And if I want them to understand the necessity for Sabbath and practice it in their own lives, I've got to be willing to admit to them that, hey, I don't have this all figured out. I'm not. I want you to be a part of this process with me, and let's figure out how do we Sabbath together well. And if I'm not willing to be honest about my own shortcomings with them, I mean, what am I teaching them? I'm teaching them to hide their own struggles.
Yes.
And I think for me, one of the big verses that has become so real since meeting with Ron, and even before that, when my close friends and my brother-in-law were speaking into my life, and I'm not listening to them, and they're all going, "Jay, what is going on with you? Something's wrong. What's happening?" And I would not listen. I wasn't willing to. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't willing to even come to grips with that. But James 5:16, confess your sin to one another, pray for one another. And I always leave the middle part out and come back to it, but the prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. Well, that middle part says, so that healing can begin.
Mm-hmm.
So confess your sin to one another, pray for one another, so that healing can begin. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. And man, it wasn't until I was willing to come to grips with my own shortcomings and my lack of practicing a relationship with God and so many other things. It was when I started to confess that to people, and not just anybody, but righteous people in my life.
Right.
Healing was like not full healing automatic, but it was like automatic started that process of healing in my life. And that was huge. And so I'm like, this is what I want to teach my kids. Even though they're all adults now, I want to teach them that, hey, your dad didn't have it all figured out for 20 some odd years of ministry, but I want you to help me work on this for the next however many years that God gives me. And I realize that I have less time ahead of me than I do behind me, but it's like, okay, I want my kids involved in that, in learning from them and understanding that, you know what, they can also be teaching me about what it means to Sabbath and what it means to rest and what it means to be in relationship with God and with them. And so, yeah, that's been huge.
Yeah. So, a lot of people talk about Sabbath, but they don't really know how to practice Sabbath. So for you, what does Sabbath look like?
Yeah, so for me, Sabbath started off with a weekly, once a week. So my wife and I, from 7 p.m. Friday night through 7 p.m. Saturday night is our 24-hour period of Sabbath. And why that? Because one of the things that I had to come also to grips with was that I needed to get in control of my calendar. I needed to get in control of my time. I remember one of the things Ron said to us over and over again was, you calendar what's important to you. And so for me, that was huge. Had to get a hold of that. A huge book that helped me in that was At My Best by Carey Nieuwhof, or At Your Best. Some of the stuff that he has in there is so good, because he actually was a pastor and he burned out and is not a pastor anymore, but helping pastors to understand the necessity of Sabbath and rest and personal health and all that sort of stuff. So for me, 7 o'clock Friday night through 7 o'clock Saturday night is really important for me, because my wife and I will do like a date night Friday night, and then it just carries over into Saturday, and then what also it does is, because I need some time Saturday night to go over my notes for the next day for Sunday morning sermon. So okay, I've scheduled my 24 hours of Sabbath, and then I know I've got some time before I hit the hay on Saturday night to look over my notes, and I'm ready to go in that sense. So, yeah, I don't, doesn't have to be necessarily like, I think that's the thing sometimes people think is it has to be some legalistic thing. And no, it's again, it's not about I have to do this, I get to do this. So,
yes.
And how is this going to fit within the context of our of our lives. And so for me, that means, Friday 7 till Saturday at 7. And that's worked out. That's worked out well. Have I gotten it perfected? No. There's still times where, yeah. I mean, for sure, one of the things that I've had to really, really work hard at is putting the phone away and make sure the computer's off. And you know what?
So what you're saying is you don't even look at your phone or your emails or take phone calls during that time?
You know what? I may look at them to see if they're somebody's on fire, sort of 911 thing, right? And even because even if you look at Jesus' life, there are times where he has. Okay, so yes, he often went away to lonely places and prayed, but there are some times where Jesus is doing that. And somebody comes and he's like, okay, I need to take care of that. Again, It's not about a legalistic thing. So for me, it's like, okay, yeah, there may be some moments but I can tell you in 3 years in practicing turning off the phone, turning off emails, not responding to texts, stuff like that, there's been, I don't even think I can count on two hands where it was so important that I had to answer it right then and there.
Okay, well that leads me to this question then. How did you teach your church to respect your Sabbath and do you encourage them to practice it too?
Yeah.
So how did you train them? Let's just answer that question first.
Yeah, excellent. When I had the opportunity to go on sabbatical, and that was part of Care for Pastors was part of that. When I got back from that, my wife and I, we did this whole presentation of everything that God had been teaching us, and I was blown away at the number of people that were in a very similar situation of feeling like they're burned out or burning out. Felt like they wanted to quit, they wanted to throw in the towel, all this stuff. And we ended up having lots and lots of conversations as a result of that. But I ended up doing a series not long, and I really felt like God was directing me on it, no question. One of the books that I read over that sabbatical is actually a book called How Is Your Soul? And it's by Judah Smith. And so I did a series entitled that. How's your soul? And I talked a lot about what we went through with Ron, Care for Pastors, of the books that I had been reading, of just the Word of God and what does God teach about rest, what does God teach about Sabbath. And that was like the initial kind of launching point because I knew this can't just be something that I practice. This has to be something that we practice church-wide. But I also knew, you know what, for me, getting up and preaching on something, if I'm not practicing it already, if it's not already penetrated in my heart, how do I communicate that to the people that I'm leading? It's got to have hit me in my heart. So that was something that already had hugely impacted my soul, and so I'm sharing that, wanting the congregation to understand this is a direction that we're heading. This is not just for me, this is for you too. And so we started talking about a weekly rhythm of rest. Yeah. And then as that has transpired, so it's been 3 years, as that has continued on, I began to realize, you know what, no, I don't need just a weekly rhythm of rest, I need a daily rhythm of Sabbath, of spending time with the Lord, remembering the goodness of God in the land of the living, and focusing on my relationship with God. That can't be just something I'm doing once a week. That has to be just something I'm doing every day. And so a daily Sabbath is so important for me. And sometimes that looks like morning. Sometimes that's in the middle of the day. Sometimes that's in the evening. Sometimes it's all three. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'll do my morning time with the Lord, and by midday, stuff has gone on so much that I've forgotten that stuff. So I need to remember what it was. And so for me, some of those practices have been, reading the Word of God, of course, praying, but some things that really have been a huge part of that is journaling for me. And I'm not a writer. Like, I don't like to write on stuff because my handwriting is horrible. And I think like if I went back to read it, I would never even know what I read, like what I wrote. And I sure don't. And I would love to pass this stuff on to my kids, and I don't want them to be like, Dad, we don't have the gift of interpretation. This is not going to work. And so, like, for me, it's like, okay. So I type, I have all my journals now are on digital platform, and
oh, good.
And that's huge for me.
Neat.
So that's been a big thing. And then another thing that is a part of it is I do what I call 15 minutes of theology, and I'll set up a stopwatch on my phone, and 15 minutes, and I just get into a theology book, and just read it 15 minutes solid. And I know for me that's enough. Like if I go more than that, it'll be too much for my brain to handle. And so, but that's, again, trial and error, right? I mean, I just, it's stuff that I've been doing, learning over time. And sometimes in the middle of the day, so not only did we implement it church-wide, but that meant that our staff had to implement it. And so I began to explore with them, what does that look like for you guys? And what we do now is every single one of our staff, once a month, they can take an entire day off, and it's all about Sabbath, it's all about rest, it's all about focusing on the goodness of God, and that can be a work day. Now, not everybody's taking it on the same day. We're doing it at various times throughout the month, but that's been huge. Like I can tell you, my staff has been like, they're like, that reset, that moment of, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is that they do, has been just instrumental in them. And again, I don't want, like, I'm not measuring on productivity or anything like that. But what I can say is that they come back recharged, filled up, and they're more effective in ministry. They just are. And so that's been something that we've had to do.
So you encourage them to do weekly Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You've
absolutely.
encouraged your church to do that as well.
Yep.
And you did a teaching on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do a couple of them a year now.
Do you?
On that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are they online?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, on our church's website. htbc.church. And you can actually go. We have a YouTube channel, and they're all on there as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yep. So I encourage you. We'll link to that in the show notes along with the two books that you mentioned. And I like what you said about the daily Sabbath. Some people call it a quiet time. Other people call it the prayer time. In the book that we recommend a lot, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality.
Yeah. Which that was another huge one for me, too.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. He talks about the daily office.
Yep.
Right. In that, which is basically what you're talking about. So
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look, ministry is it can be soul crushing at times.
Oh man, for sure.
And so the reality is we need these focused times with God. Mm-hmm. If we don't, we may end up where you were 3 years ago.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Not to dogpile on you, but just to say from your own story.
Yep.
We have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, either you'll take the time to rest in Sabbath, or it will be forced on you to take rest in Sabbath. Right. Whether that's through destruction of your physical health or your mental health or whatever, it will catch up to you, and it will, it'll take you down. I mean, I remember Ron talking to me and saying, "Listen, Jay, here's the deal. In 6 months, this is what's going to happen. You're either going to burn out or you're going to sin out." And I'm like, dude, that is not what God called me to do. He did not call me to do that. I do not want to be another statistic. And so, that began the process of me realizing there's got to be some changes there. I mean, again, I can't control anybody else, but I can control what I do, and I can control my time. And so I was like, no, I know what God's called me to do. What am I doing? Why am I, and so, yeah.
So, Jay, what would you say to the pastor who isn't currently practicing a Sabbath in their own life and ministry?
You know what? I thought about, I think about that, and I think that it's almost like what Ron said. I mean, if you do not, you will either burn out or you will sin out. And sadly, I've seen that happen so many times.
Yes.
And it didn't have to. It did not have to. And I don't know. If nothing else, the daily Sabbath is just that day. It's just like anything. I mean, if you think that you can only survive on one meal a week, I mean, I tell people that all the time. If you're just going to attend church on a Sunday morning for an hour and expect that that's your entire spiritual diet, you are starving yourself, and you are missing out on the delicacies of heaven because you've convinced yourself that all you need is one meal.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So Jason, as we bring this podcast to a close, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with that would hopefully encourage them to step forward and take this habit seriously?
Yeah, for me, I think, you know what, if this had not become a reality for me, I would not be here right now.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And I think about all that I would have missed out on if God had not, used the circumstances of my life in order to get a hold of my attention. And I'm so thankful that He did, because there has been so much, even in the last 3 years, that God has done and is doing. And are the times difficult? Are the days that we're looking at hard? Oh my word, no doubt. And they're only going to get harder. And the necessity for us to draw near to Him is going to become more and more and more important all the day, as we see the day approach. And man, I don't know about, I don't know about you, but I believe, Robby, for you and I both, we want to hit the tape of heaven running. And what I mean by that is simply, I want to hit it running, because that's what God's called me to do, is be faithful to Him. And and that I get to be a part of His story of reconciliation and redemption of this world. Just blows me away, and is my motivation every day.
You said earlier, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, you said earlier that you know a lot of pastors who've burned out or sinned out. I think we both have. I think every pastor and church leader who's listening today has seen that pastor or that church leader do that. Mm-hmm. And I think what you just said is very important. And the reality is that most of the clients who come to care for pastors are not practicing Sabbath.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah.
And everything you've shared with us today has been an encouragement and a reason why we need to practice it. And I'm so grateful, Jay, that you took the time to be transparent with us, to tell us your story, and to encourage us to finish strong. And so, friend, if you're listening today, the reality is you need to practice Sabbath. And you're putting yourself above God if you're not. And we all know that we're not. So, Jason, anything else that you want to share with us today?
You know what? If I can be a help in any way, I mean, seriously, if I can, one of the thrills of my heart is to help pastors and people in ministry to thrive. And if I can help in any way, whether that's a phone call or email or whatever, I'm available. And I will make myself available.
So how can people reach out to you, Jason?
Easiest way is through my email, and probably the most effective in the sense of it's on. I have it, but it's easy. It's Jason at HTBC for Harvest Time Bible Church .church. So Jason at HTBC.church.
Well, listen, if you're listening to this podcast today and you find yourself in the process of burning out or sinning out, let me encourage you to reach out to Care for Pastors. You can find us at careforpastors.org. Top right-hand corner, there's a Get Help button. Fill out the form. We'd be glad to connect with you. I hope it's within 30 minutes, like for Jay, and be able to help walk you through a season of healing and encouragement. And so we're so grateful that we've gotten to hang out with you today, Jason, and thank you for being on the Care for Pastors podcast.
Man, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on the Care for Pastors podcast. I hope this conversation with Pastor Jason Borton has encouraged you to see Sabbath not as a burden, but as a gift, a healthy rhythm that helps us draw near to God and to serve from a place of rest. As we continue in this series on habits of healthy pastors, we're excited about what's coming next. In our next episode, I'll be sitting down with pastor and counselor Kevin Urichko to talk about the habit of being a healthy pastor. Kevin will share from his own journey and give us some practical insight on what it really looks like to pursue health in every area of life and ministry. You won't want to miss this episode. And if this episode has been encouraging to you, would you help us out by sharing this podcast with a friend? And would you rate and leave a review? Until then, remember, caring for yourself is not selfish. It's essential, and we'll see you next time.